All right, Jeff, you there?
I'm here.
All right. So, welcome everybody to Palm Beach RIA's monthly webinar with myself, John Zwirzina, and my business partner, Jeff Green. We'll meet once a month to discuss various real estate topics, offer training on wholesaling, rehabbing, buying holds. Feel free to type in any questions you have as we go on the right-hand side. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm doing great. How are you, John?
Fantastic.
All right. First, thanks to everyone that attended the third annual National Real Estate Investor Conference Nexpo. We had over 350 people that attended. This month, we're going to talk about wholesaling, finding a deal, locking it up, flipping it, and never losing a deposit.
That's important. For those who don't know, Jeff and myself, we do approximately 25 assignments per year, double closings, etc. We do approximately 15 to 20 rehabs a year. We also do commercial deals. We own a brokerage firm. We've done about $10 million in apartment buildings in the past year. We're going to talk about some of our wholesale deals today, though. One of our last closings that we had was a property on Australian, where we made about $40,000. Jeff, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, Australian was interesting. My son Robert, I've got a team. My son Robert, Austin, John, and myself. So my son Robert put some letters on the back of his truck. We buy houses cash. And he was driving through his neighborhood, and all of a sudden a lady called him, and she had a house over off Australian. So it took us a while to negotiate because, of course, everybody looks at Zillow and they think it's worth $10 million. But I know prices have gone up. It's a little crazy right now, but we're still able to make a living. We're still doing great wholesaling. So on that one there, we had to negotiate for a while. She was a little undecided, but John was able to negotiate, get a good price. We sent it on the email blast. We found a buyer, and we closed on it. And that was just a plain, simple one piece of paper assignment. And that was it.
Yeah, it was that simple. The hard part's finding the house. Another one we did, we actually found two properties from one owner, Cayuga and Avon. I think we made about 20 on each of those. Do you remember how I found those?
Yeah, that's a good number. 20 in each one. We're not greedy. They got a saying in this business that the greedy pigs get slaughtered. So when you ask too much, you're going to sit on it. And then you're going to, not be able to do this business very long because it is a small world. So on Cayuga, I was actually driving for dollars myself. We were looking in the commercial area over off of Grandview Heights. So I crossed the train tracks, and it was all grown up. And, it was 2 stories. So I figured it was multi-unit. And so we skip traced it through RE Lead System. That's RELeadSystem.com. So we skip traced it, 7-day free trial, by the way. And we contacted the seller. We negotiated. There was a few fines from all the overgrowth. And in doing it, we did such a great job in moving his one property that we didn't realize that he had 2 or 3 more. So we entered into contract on those, and we're able to sell those as well. The other one was on Avon.
Yep. And Jeff brought up a good thing, PropStream, RE Lead Systems. On the right side of your screen, there's a link to sign up for a free trial, free 7-day trial. Another property that we found recently is a property on Rudolph. We actually closed last week, I believe. We made
Friday
on that one.
It was a great week.
Yeah.
That one there was an expired MLS listing, and we just skip traced it once again. Skip tracing is very, very important. RELeadSystem.com. No S on the end of systems. RELeadSystem.com. And we were able to, once again, find the seller because you can drive all these neighborhoods. You can find all these vacant properties, and you can look on Palm Beach County Property Appraiser. You can see a person's name. Good luck getting a hold of them. You need a really strong skip tracing service. We do probates. We do a lot of different things where we really really need to find the seller or whoever is in charge of the property. And we call people a lot of times and they're like, oh, I don't own it no more. I left it. I abandoned it. Well, your name is still on the title or the deed to the property, so you still have the rights to it because the mortgage is just a lien or a debt on the property. That's it. So if your name's on it, let's talk.
That's right. And all those offers we made were in land trusts. Jeff, you know, explain land trust. I'm the one, you're the one who taught me.
Yeah, I don't know how deep I want to get into this subject, but I mean, we've used the land trust for every single property that we've ever bought and sold. And the reason is it makes it assignable because you can simply change the trustee. It's got 3 moving parts. You got the trustee. That's the manager. You've got the deed name, which is land trust, usually the address of the property. Like it could be 2916 Oswego Land Trust. But it has to say land trust at the end. And so there's 3 parts to it. The trust, the manager, the actual deed name, which is land trust, and then you've got whoever actually owns it. And that's the part about anonymity because basically nobody knows who owns it if you see land trust and there's no trustee specified or it's an LLC that owns another LLC. And the whole idea behind the land trust is the fact that if you have 10 LLCs, you have 10 annual reports, you have 10 tax returns for the 10 LLCs. Whereas if you have one LLC, you can run all the land trust through there. And it's a lot easier at tax time. As long as you're reporting each of these properties that were bought and sold through a land trust on your LLC, then there's no problem. As a matter of fact, one of the most famous one of the most famous land trusts was actually Walt Disney World. Because he came down here to Orlando and bought all the farms he could buy through different land trust names and different agents. Because if all the old farmers had found out that they were purchasing property to make Disney World, then they would have wanted a lot more money for their property. Because the next thing you know, this is selling for this much. How come I can't sell mine for more? Because this big company's coming in here and they're making Disney World. So that's the most famous one. But we've actually made Little Tykes Land Trust, Sister Teresa Orphanage Land Trust. We're very creative with the names, but the majority of the time we just use the address land trust. And you can have judgments, and you can have foreclosures, you can have bankruptcies, you can have all that stuff and still get paid out of a land trust because it's not personal. And we don't do anything personal. We don't put nothing on personal names. There's no reason to. And a whole other subject is subject to the existing financing, buying a property with debt, because a mortgage is just a debt. That's it. It's just like a lien on it. It's just like a code enforcement violation. It's just like anything else. You're just buying it subject to what it has. You're buying the deed and you own the deed, and that's it. Whatever else it comes with.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, my house down here in Florida, I got a subject to. Remember?
Taking over the debt is the best thing ever. The realtors have already made the money. The mortgage people have already made the money. The title companies already made the money. You're simply getting a deed to a property. Now you own it, and it just comes with whatever attaches to it.
So let's talk about how to find your next deal, which everyone knows, obviously, in this market is not the easiest thing. Like we've been talking about, releadsystem.com, which is PropStream. It's just a link to give you a 7-day free trial. On there, you can search probates, list pendants, properties with liens. I mean, the list goes on. You can filter a bunch of stuff. You can skip trace on there, send out emails, the whole 9 yards. So I think that's how we find a good amount of our deals. Not all of them, but a good amount. Jeff?
Well, I've always liked driving for dollars. You can send somebody out in the neighborhood and canvass it and go street by street. And, you know, like I was saying before, a lot of people have issues with the property to where they get filed the list pendants, which is the first step in the foreclosure process, and they run for the hills. They're like, oh, the bank's taking it. I'm getting out of here. I don't want to be evicted.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a process, maybe 6 months. It used to be 2 or 3 years or longer, you know, back in the crisis. And So you just, it's a business. You got to work it every day. This is not a part-time gig.
No.
It takes a lot of energy. We've worked on deals for 6 months before and got a decent payday. People are not ready now. Maybe they'll be ready in the future. Maybe they want to move out of state. We do a lot of bandit signs. Some of them say, change your attitude, change your address. Leave your problems behind. We bought many different things where people just leave all their stuff. They don't want to be bothered with moving stuff. Seems like we always end up with couches and beds and all kinds of stuff. And we make the phone call and get it all cleared out. And it's a small amount to pay to give them some relief because they want to sell for a reason. And recently we have one locked up that my son Robert found. And the lady was behind on everything, but she didn't know anything on the house that had been paid for because she bought it years and years ago at such a cheap price. So she said she was praying, and by my son knocking on the door and talking to the lady and talking to her if she wants to sell and giving her an offer right then and there. Because when you have a farm neighborhood, a cookie cutter neighborhood, you know the values. You can almost make an offer sight unseen. It's either got a decent roof, it's got wall units, it's got central, or it don't, or it's got the jealousy windows, or it don't. It's either been updated or it's not. So when you know the values in a neighborhood and you're really good at it, you can almost make an offer sight unseen per square footage because you know what the rehab is going to cost and you know what you can sell it for. It's just getting good at what you do. Yeah. So we really gave that lady some relief because even though she was equity rich, she was cash poor. So now she hit the lottery. And she's going to walk away with a couple $100,000 cash, and she's going to go rent somewhere, and she's just loving it because now she's rich.
Yeah. There's a bunch of ways. Lien searches for City of West Palm Beach, water liens, people not paying all kinds of bills. There's a bunch of different ways to find properties. You just got to try new things, I guess. Cold calling, like I said, RELeadsystem.com. If you find a house, you can skip trace it using that system to get their phone number, email address, everything. I guess the most important thing is after you find a deal, you got to have a buyer, right?
True. But the buyer part of it is the easy part. Once everybody knows what you do, we had a friend of the family a while back said, hey, do you buy houses? And well, yes. And when people know what you do, they know who to call. So I helped these people by making offers on both their properties, and they were very happy. And it was a net offer to where, there's wants and needs. What do you need? What can we do to help you? And, you're solving problems. It's debt relief and stress relief. And you really get to the root of the problem. How can we help? And that's really what it's all about, because not everybody just wants to sell their house, but maybe they want to move somewhere. Maybe they're afraid of all these different people that come in, the whole foreclosure scam back in 06 and 08, sign your deed away. They've actually got laws out to where if it's a primary residence, you're not supposed to be able to get the deed to it because they call that a foreclosure scam. So as one of the gurus used to say, don't tell anybody anything that you're not going to do. Don't lie. Just be truthful. There's no shuffling of the paperwork and, getting a mobile notary to do it after the fact. There's no tabletop closings on the trunk of a car anymore. Like we used to do. It was wonderful. But you use a title company, even for taking over debt. You always want to have them in the middle of it. And that brings you instant, whatever the word is. They just know you're serious and you're real when you're using a title company. You're not trying to nobody. You're just trying to buy a house and build your buyers list. And we have some general contractors, because general contractors a lot of times don't really want to work for people, but that's just kind of what they do. But if they buy their own property and we can help them with the financing, a lot of times we self-finance. A lot of times we'll have financing people ready to go on these different properties where all they need to do is say, I want it, and we make it happen. And we do a lot of rehabs as well. So a lot of times when we find a property, we'll just rehab it depending on the area, depending on how many other ones we got on the burner. depending on what else we're doing.
Yep. And Chip, I know you're asking if we have a company who hauls away furniture. We'll put it in the comments at the end, shoot you an email with it. Since you signed up for this, I have your email address, and I think I have it from before. So I will email it over to you. And yes, this is being recorded. And I'll send you all links to everything afterwards. And everything, if you guys find a property and you can't find a buyer, we are buyers, obviously, and we can find your buyer. We partner with people all the time. So send us your deals if you find something. Finding funding.
Well, that's pretty simple. I mean, in the business, when in the beginning, I was just using hard money. It was great, but it was a lot of junk fees. It was 15% and 3 points. And I was happy just to be doing deals. Wasn't making a lot of money because the hard money lender, that's why they call it hard money. If it was easy money, it would be a lot easier, but it's hard money. So it's interesting how they call the shots in the beginning, but then later on they're calling you and begging you to borrow money because they know that you're successful and you're going to buy it, fix it, sell it, give them their money back in a timely manner. And that's why they want to do business with you. So you don't really go out and say, hey, I want to borrow money. You say, look at the deal I've got. Look at my past deals. Look what I've done. I took one hard money lender through the neighborhood that I've done, and we paint everything yellow. There was so many yellow houses. So we drove through there, and I was able to point and just spit out, okay, we bought this one on this time. We sold it for this. We went down the street, just ramble off addresses, because people want to make money on their money, even if it's 8 or 10%. I mean, you're not getting no money in your IRA. Depending on what you're in, you're getting 1% at the bank, you're 0.5%. I mean, real estate is really where the money's at. And a lot of people, like I have a self-directed IRA, I use that to buy houses with. All we did was change the custodian from Wells Fargo to, I believe I'm with, yes, Equity Trust. So that's my money. I'm able to take it. I'm able to buy properties with it. I'm able to lend money to other people and make interest money on it. So the self-directed IRA, that's just a whole other thing all by itself.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're wholesaling the deal, you don't need funding unless if it's an assignment, you don't need funding. But if it's a double closing, you need
transactional funding. What is transactional funding? Well, used to be we could use back-end funding. What is back-end funding? Back-end funding is when you're closing on it as the seller and you take the buyer's money and you use that to close the deal. But they made that illegal. They kept changing everything. Bank of America even had on one of their statements one time, call us, we'll help you. Yeah, BS. They'll help you. They'll help take your house away. They'll pretend they're doing a loan modification while at the same time they're foreclosing on you. That's called dual tracking. That's why they come up with all these different rules to come back and fight the banks. But the banks have the audacity to say, don't sell your house to anyone else. Call us if you're in trouble. Yeah, so they could take it and they could take your equity and pretending they're helping. I saw a video a long time ago from Bank of America. It was interesting. It was somebody that took a video of an internal meeting that they had, and they said if we could make $1 more by foreclosing on these people, that's what we're going to do. It was really all about the money. And so good times and bad times. But the great part about a land trust, getting back to that subject, is, I mean, you can have liens, judgments, foreclosures, bankruptcies. You can have anything, and you can still buy and sell these properties. And yeah, it's similar to an LLC in a way, but the difference is if you have 10 annual reports and 10 tax returns, and you only have, as long as you report all those on the tax return, you're avoiding all those fees, because it's about $138.50 for an annual report on an incorporation, where it's $150 on an LLC. So you've got all those fees that you're paying.
You got to do a tax return
for each LLC. Yes. Oh, and then if the LLCs are similar names with code enforcement, it could tie it up. But the whole idea behind the land trust is keep it separate.
Right.
Keep everything separate. different land trust names, different beneficiaries, different trustees. You never have nothing to worry about.
We just use the address usually. So for buying 123 Main Street, we just use 123 Main Street Land Trust, blank LLC as trustee.
So, John, how do you avoid losing a deposit?
Well, there's two ways, I guess. Obviously, you have your inspection period on the contract. Whether it be 3 days. I like to write in business days to skip weekends, stuff like that. Also, on the first part of the contract, you have, if you leave it blank, it's 3 days till you put your deposit up. Until the deposit's up, the contract is not valid. So that gives you a couple days. If you put a 5 in there, you have 5 days before you put the deposit up to find a buyer.
Well, John also has a way of putting business days and not calendar days.
Yeah, I do that on pretty much every single contract. It buys you maybe on, let's say it's 5 business days. And I write the contract on a Friday. I got 4 extra days from that, the first weekend and the second weekend. So
a little trick of the trade.
Yeah.
Chip was asking if we have an attorney that sets up land trust. We've been doing it for so long, we do it ourselves. Actually, there's a link.
You go to nreicu.com. I'll put a link in this afterwards. And you can download the form right on there. I think Jeff knows more about land trust forms because he puts them together. It's like 5 pages or something, and it's
and some can be notarized, some not notarized. Land trusts don't have tax returns, and they're never recorded.
Right.
And the trustee is not allowed to tell who the beneficiary is unless it's a court order. So it's very interesting and manipulative how you can have a trustee in Georgia. They're not going to go up and subpoena anybody from Georgia to come down to Florida for anything. And I had a problem a while back. I had a roofer, real piece of crap roofer guy. He goes to put half of shingles on a roof and it doesn't match. So I drive out there, I call the guy, doesn't answer the phone. Just real pig-headed, just a stubborn old guy from the country. And I'm trying to work something out with the guy. I'm just like, you got to do this right. It's got to match. He comes up with all these excuses. He never answers the phone. Finally, he calls me up and says, we're done. I said, why didn't you answer the phone? I'm furious at this point. I'm like, I need it to match. How am I supposed to sell the house? All I'm asking you to do is put the shingles on it and make it match. He's like, oh, you could paint the roof. You could pressure clean it. You can do a lot of different things. I'm like, well, I might have done the whole roof at the same time. I might have done a lot of different things, but it was my choice. It's my house. So we ended up going to court, and it was in a land trust, and nothing ever happened with it because they couldn't find the trustee. There was nobody to sue. It's a wonderful game to buy and sell property and completely protect yourself against frivolous lawsuits and frivolous people. Because the shadiest people hide in the sunniest places.
Yeah. Speaking of protecting yourself.
Oh, my goodness.
We're not going to name names or anything like that. So one of the people that Jeff and myself wholesale properties to.
But not this one.
Not this one. We actually looked at this property 9 months earlier and walked away from it because there was about $1 million in fines from the city. And the city had filed a list pendants on the property, the wonderful city of West Palm Beach. And they closed on the property. Now, if there's liens and violations on a property, and even though you put, clear and marketable title at closing, the title company will get you to sign a hold harmless, so their title policy is not covering those code violations. They signed a hold harmless property, and I think, 3 days later?
3 days later.
The city took the property back in auction.
But they were never notified that there was a list pendants filed on the property with the title and lien search. They signed a hold harmless that related only to the case number and were never disclosed. Now the owner had to know it. That's fraud.
Yep.
The title company had to have wind of it because they did all these lien searches.
I'll never use that title company.
Yeah. So yeah, the city of West Palm Beach is notorious because code enforcement was set up originally just to put liens on, not necessarily liens on properties, but to advise of code. And it shouldn't be any penalties, shouldn't be no interest, and they shouldn't have the right to foreclose. But they've done it many, many times, and there's been many lawsuits which people have won against the city of West Palm Beach. So we're just hoping that our friends come out good on this. I mean, you're talking $201,000 that just went bloop.
Yeah. I mean, deed is not in their name anymore. They didn't even know until they went to go pull permits.
And they caught up some of the back taxes.
City's like, nope.
But you can't wait 3 months to figure it out after you buy it. This happened in November. You have to go to the property. You have to turn the electric on. You got to turn the water on. I forgot to turn the electric on one time because the electric was on. And it was something we bought. And they came out and they pulled the meter 3 days before the appraisal. They just yanked the meter out because it wasn't an active account. Then I had to get a general inspection.
Yeah.
Turn back on. So it was just one thing after another. Just, turn the utilities on, get it going. And we just had a lot of houses at that point. I think one of the other ones that I heard that was kind of bad, well, really bad. I don't even know how this ever turned out. We were working in a real estate office back in like 2007 or 8.
That's where we met.
And this guy he was a realtor, and he ended up selling a property to some lady. Well, a week later, a guy walks into our real estate office with the locks to the house and garden. And we're like, well, what's going on? What are you doing over there? He's like, I'm just bringing you back the locks to the house and garden. I just bought it at the tax detail. So somebody screwed up. I mean, it was either the title company that didn't pay the back taxes. It was the person that bought it at foreclosure, but then didn't check any further. I mean, I'm not going to toot our own horn, but we have not messed up like that. We buy property and we're meticulous about anything that we wholesale. We're trying to give everybody a property and not screw them.
And don't get scared just because there's liens on a property. We buy properties with liens all the time. You just have to work with the city, fix the code violations, and they will mitigate the fines. We've had properties with $200,000 in fines. If you take care of the code violations, the city knocks them down to $10,000 or whatever, and that's it. It's done. It's over. So don't be scared.
It's a great way to buy property. It takes out a lot of the competition because if you're afraid of it and you don't want to touch it, that's great. Just takes out the competition.
People, they call them stuff for wholesaling if it has liens. I mean, there's half of your buyers at least gone right there. If they've never done it. But if anyone buys anything from us, obviously, we do it all the time where we take care of the code violations, fill out the paperwork for you, walk you through the process, obviously. But I think why don't you tell what title? Someone asked a question about title company.
That would be REIC Title by Global. We work with a company that does the assignments, simultaneous closings. It's reictitle.com. And we also have Palm Beach Investors Realty, where we can list investor properties, do investor specials, help you to get it on the market, help you to get the best price possible. And REIC Title does the assignments, the simultaneous closings, double closings, which is the same thing as simultaneous. Rule of thumb is if you're making $5 or $10 grand, you can put it on the contract as an assignment. One piece of paper just spells everything out. But if you're making more than that and is upset and says, well, I don't want to sell it now, you're making too much money, which is none of their business, of course. Then what you do is you close on the property, you pay an additional set of closing costs. And that's pretty much it. It's just a double closing. But if you're buying a $200,000 property and you're selling it for $220,000, you still need the $200,000 to walk in there and put it down. We do it for 1%. So me and John will put out our $200,000. We put it at the title company. It's very safe. It doesn't go anywhere. And then when the money comes into the title company for the second part of the transaction, our money is released and given back to us. So we don't really have a lot of risk. And we do that for 1%, which in this industry is pretty cheap. But we're very investor friendly. We're trying to help investors as well as do more business. And we're very busy with the apartment buildings. We've got a lot of buyers out of California. I have a brokerage license. We have 3 brokerages, Palm Beach Investors Realty, South Florida Investors Realty for the agents that want to come on board that don't have the MLS and don't want it. Maybe they're part-time. They just want to hang their license somewhere. We do that. And then we have Palm Beachers Realty, which is one I've had forever because the people that go to the island, they're called Palm Beachers.
Yeah.
So I came up with that little name, and Palm Beach Realty was already taken. That's all.
All right. You have anything else, Jeff? I think we should talk about. I guess. Well, I don't know if we touched on this, but the difference why you would do an assignment and a double closing. One of the other reasons is if it doesn't happen all the time, but say you have a $80,000 spread on a property or something like that. I mean, you don't want to show the buyer, you're paying $80,000 assignment fee, do that to you. So a double closing obviously hides that fact, and that's one of the reasons you would do it. Or if it's not assignable, I guess you have to also. But,
well, because most contracts we try to check the box, assignable but not released from liability. Yeah. And that's our first way to assign. And then the second way, of course, is in the land trust, because we've actually sold properties out of that to cash buyers. We've done lien and title search, and then we've sold them the trust. The deed stays the same. Mm-hmm. All they do is we sign an affidavit changing the trustee to their trustee of choice, and then beneficial interest. That's a notarized form, and that's giving them the rights to the trust. And the name never changes. So you could have Little Tykes Land Trust, and it would stay the same name, and it could change hands 20 times.
Yeah.
Unlike an LLC, you would have to sell the LLC to sell the property.
People do that too, but it's just, like you said, too much easier to do the land trust way. And I know it's hard to find deals out there right now. So everybody's always like, where are you finding your next deal? We talked a little bit about how we found some of the last deals, but we're still finding deals. I think we closed 3 just assignments last week alone. Mm-hmm. So there's still plenty of deals out there.
Well, people are always going to be in distress. There's always going to be probates.
Yeah.
There's always going to be subject to existing financing, especially in appreciating markets. The more it appreciates, the better off you are. I've bought properties and just held on to them because we were busy working on other stuff. And by the time we got done, they had massively appreciated all by itself. And, these days the values are so high, you got to be careful and not put your feet too much in the water, if you know what I mean. You got to be careful what you buy. Try to get in and out unless it's a great deal. And people are like, oh, I'm not buying multifamily at the height of the market. Well, if your door cost is the right price and your income is good and you got a decent cap rate, you can afford to lose some money and have a less cap rate if the values go down and still cash flow.
We bought an apartment building, for a client, but not even a year ago, for about $1 million. We put about $50,000 into it for them. They could put that property back on the MLS, which I think they're going to do, or we're going to do for them in July, I think, is the 1-year mark. And we'll put it on there for $1.9 million. I mean,
he's going to make a lot of money. We're going to make some commission, but he's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it goes hand in hand. I mean, we made some money when the thing closed and we sold it to him, and he's been a great buyer. And we'll call him a whale buyer, as they say. And then we've had whale sellers, which would be the ones like on Avon and Cayuga, where we had multiple properties. And it's getting to know the relationship. I used to always go in after home investors. People would call me and, through advertisement. Home investors came in and they offered me $26,000 and they insulted us. I was like, all right, well, tell me your story. Everybody's got a story. Well, the grandkids want us to move up to South Carolina, and we got this travel trailer we're going to move into, and it's all set, and we just have to sell this house. And the last people said they were going to buy it, and they were wholesalers, and they didn't end up closing on it. We got the U-Haul sitting out there, and we're ready to go. Some wholesalers give us a bad name.
Big time.
Not everybody likes real estate investors. We had this one in particular, tried to sell us a house. Didn't even have a contract. It was the weirdest thing ever. It was on one piece of paper. I know you can sit at a Denny's and you can sit there on a napkin and you can write out a contract, but it's got to have some things in it. It's got to have a closing date. It's got to have a deposit amount.
Yeah.
It's got to have the address. You got to have some facts on there, and mostly it has to have a deposit. So we've ran into some individuals in this business. I've been doing this about 20 years with John here. And I tell you what, we're doing great. Never have been this great. And just happy to be doing what we do. And we just never know the next one. It's when you advertise and market, you want the phone to ring instead of trying to chase deals. And I love it when people call up, do you buy houses?
Oh, yeah.
We're like, what you got?
That's why, I mean, that's the best is when the phone rings. I mean, that comes obviously with time, doing it for a while. You know, you get your website, you're eventually on Google. You know, people start giving you referrals and stuff like that. But
well, I'd like to say hi right now to Michael Menudo from Austin, Texas.
I know. I saw that.
And then Chip wants us to explain more on subject to. I love subject to the existing financing.
Subject to.
I'm a Ron LeGrand student from like 2003. I quit high school in the 10th grade. But then I went to Barrett Community College. I don't know, because I was just done with school. But then I was like, well, there's got to be more out there for me. So I did that for a semester. And then I went to public supermarkets and did that for about 20 years and got a great retirement. And that's where I put the self-directed money with the self-directed IRA that we can use kind of to move things along. And so subject to, basically, it's like a lien on the property. It could be like a code violation. It could be anything of that nature. If the guy builds you a pool, he's putting a lien on your property. A mortgage is nothing more than a lien on the property. That's it. Now, the banks don't want you to take it over. There's no assumable mortgages since 1987, but we're not assuming the mortgage. We're taking it over. We're just buying the property. We're getting the deed to the property by putting it into the land trust, because they don't have a department at the bank that messes with people that have great mortgages. So they're not going to mess with nobody. They're not going to do the acceleration clause. If you put it into a land trust, because you're allowed, there's a provision in there, protection and estate planning, you're allowed to put it into a trust. So that's why we use the address of the property. And basically we're just purchasing it and we're taking over whatever debt's with it. Now you can pay more because you're not paying hard money. If it's a $200,000 or $300,000 property, think about this. You don't have even a debt in your name. It's not in your name. Ownership is. And people are like, well, why would I let you do that? Why would I give you the deed? And I go, well, who's making the payments right now? And they're like, nobody. And I go, well, I'm going to get it caught up. I want to know what the reinstatement amount is, what it gets, what you have to get it to make it current. I want to get it caught up. So now it's a good mortgage. It's on the good mortgage department. And you can bet your backside, if I'm going to put out all that money to get it caught up, I'm not walking away. I'm not going to walk away from a dime. It ain't going to happen. So that's the whole thing about, I mean, there's more nuances.
A lot of forms you have to get filled out.
Well, yeah, you got to protect yourself. It's a CYA letter, and it's that word for a reason, because basically, you know, after somebody gives you a deed to their property, they could run down and cry and go, oh, I didn't know what I was signing. Yeah, get that on video. Make sure they sign it, notarize it, the deed, and even go through a title company, because, yes, you can get title policy even on taking over existing debt. You just got to find the right title company, because there's a lot of the title insurers that it goes to their underwriter and they're like, but certain ones will and certain ones won't. But that's up to the title company and how strict they are with their policies. But we're not doing anything wrong. We're buying a property just like we're buying it with a code violation. We're buying it subject to the existing financing that's already in place.
We've had properties that we bought subject to, and we sold wholesale to somebody
subject
to 7-8 years ago, and that I know that those people still have those properties today with those same loans in place. You know,
as long as you're making the payments on it, nobody bothers you.
Right.
And I had one. It was actually a sheriff's deputy, and he had an ex-wife. The ex-wife was living in the house, so he got notified that it was in foreclosure and it had a sale date. So everybody's like, "Wow, what do we do?" Well, they called me up, and I gave the attorney some money for hooking me up, and then I gave the sheriff deputy some money, all in writing, so we know exactly what's going on. And there was a sale date coming up, but we've been doing this long enough to where I'm not really concerned about sale dates, because we had enough time. We just got it done. We went in and ripped up the floor, had new floor put down, new kitchen cabinets, new vanities, everything else, put it back on the market and sold it way before the sale ever happened. And the sheriff deputy was very impressed. We should have got a testimonial from him, but it worked out, because if you know what you're doing, you're basically just getting in there, you're fixing it up, and you're selling it. I mean, it's very simple. Buy, fix, and sell. That's if you're going that route. And that's where your bigger profit's at. I mean, sometimes you can make big money in the wholesaling, but it's usually a continuous volume type thing where you're getting deals in and getting them out. And we always talk about, should we renovate it? Should we wholesale it? Well, what else do we have on our plate? And wholesaling, you make quick money, and you can make it a lot faster, because usually it's cash deals and they can close 10 to 15 days, and you get paid. Unlike a renovation, you're soaking money in it, putting money in it, paying for labor. You got all kinds of problems that could come up with code enforcement and everything else. And that's pretty much that.
Chip was asking if, you don't have to we put subject to deals into land trust because we're doing it for estate planning. Like I usually use the address just like on anything else. Land trust, my LLC is trustee. It doesn't get recorded like Jeff said earlier. We're taking, we're not assuming their debt, but we're paying their mortgage payments, taxes, HOA payments. We're getting paperwork. You contact the bank.
When you take over property subject to, you should treat it like your own property.
Yeah.
You should cure the violations, cure the liens, cure the problems. You're not trying to avoid. This is mainly ownership of the property with a debt in place. That's why you're getting it caught up and getting it reinstated. In my situation with the sheriff guy, it was 25 grand behind. I didn't bother, and I told him right up front, I'm not going to get it caught up. Nobody's making payments now. Nobody's going to make payments. It's got a sale date. Here's some money up front. If it doesn't work out, you already got paid.
Right.
And I renovated it and sold it. So basically, you're just fixing all the problems. You're not avoiding the HOA. You're not avoiding code violations.
Because they can still come after the property and take it. You don't pay the HOA, you're going to have that go, then file list pendants, and then the mortgage company's going to find out, and then they're breathing down your neck. So
I've had a lot of people where they'll buy the HOA lien at the auction, because we buy a lot at the auction. We love the auction.
Yep.
And but that's next day money. You got to have some money sitting there to buy it and do a lot of research and make sure what you're getting. But that's another great way to get it.
Yeah, there's a bunch more topics. Well,
I mean, I can talk about this stuff forever. I mean, I love real estate. Been doing it for 20 years, and just when you think you know everything, you learn more. I mean, we don't know nothing in comparison to what's out there. It's we could learn every day.
Yeah, there's just always something learning now. Maybe learn. You want to close this out, Jeff?
All right. I want to say thanks everybody for attending and joining us on the webinar. As this grows, You can click the offer on the right, join Palm Beach RIA for the next meeting, because we have a lot of attendees tonight, some members, some non-members. So we're going to close it out next week, and it's going to be members only. Reason being is there's going to be a lot more information. We'll go over forms and exactly how to do it and get a little bit more in depth to it so that people can actually do it, and not just think about it, because I mean, this is what I do 24/7. John does it 24/7. We wake up and we eat and we breathe real sleep. It's a business. Like Judge Nancy Perez told me one time when I was trying to evict somebody, Mr. Green, this is a business. You have to treat it like a business.
I just posted the link to join Palm Beach RIA on the right-hand side. You can just click on the link and join. And all these forms that we're talking about, once you become a member,
and then don't forget about
these people.
Don't forget about we do transactional funding.
Yep.
RELeadsystem.com, REIC title, Palm Beach Investors Realty. If you have deals you need help with, we can help you find the buyer. We can help you with the forms. And we can help you with the comparables. Oh my God. So many people send us deals and we're like, it's not a deal. That's retail. What are you thinking? You're not making any money. And when you tell people they got to buy it at 60 to 65% of the value, they just look at you like, how do you do that? It's called distressed properties. It's called just being out there. And when somebody says, do you want to buy it? You give them a number, but you got to be able to compare these properties and know exactly what the number is going to be. Because I've got so many people on some of these blasts, and it's like they sit on them and they sit on them, and then you see the price reduce and the price reduce and the price reduce. Next thing you know, they lose the deal, and somebody else gets it. Somebody else just picks it up. So if you have any deals, send them. We'll walk you through it. If you want to join our mailing list, Constant Contact, basically go to palmbeachreia.com. On the right, it says join us. That's not membership. Membership's on the left. On the right, it says join us, and it'll take you right to the Constant Contact page. And then you'll be getting our emails, our wholesale deals, our advertisements, our meetings, and all that stuff. And on behalf of myself, Jeff Green, and John Zwirzina, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I'd like to thank my two sons, Robert and Austin Green, for all their hard work and helping us all make money. So until next time, thank you.
Yep. And Chip, the next meeting is the last Tuesday of March. So the last Tuesday of every month. That's the meeting, same time, 7:00. So,
but we expect to hear from you guys if you need help.
Yeah.
Chip, if you need more information about land trust, we do have all the forms. We do this every day. I love subject to, because you're not borrowing hard money. You're not dipping into your back pocket. If you had to put a little bit of money out, you could have volume. You could have so many different properties. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's what we're here for. That's why we're doing these videos and stuff. That's why we had the big event. And we really had some big time people at the big event. It was awesome. So we hope to keep in contact with you guys. If you need anything, you have our information. And I remember back when I got started, I leaned on this one hard money lender. There's got to be somebody that you can call or email and help you along the way. It's like, people Google stuff, but are you really getting all the right information? And we had Nasir. I can't even say his last name. Yeah, but yeah, Nasir was amazing. He really was. Because he's a guru, not a guru.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a doer. He really does. And it's good to see people like that were homeless at one time, and here they are. They've made a success out of their stuff. So.
All right. So till next time, see you guys then. Thank you for tuning in.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you.